Probably my favourite PropTech is Airbnb. Whenever I go travelling, I love to just book on Airbnb, stay somewhere. I really feel like I'm a local. And these kind of shared economy developments are really occurring all throughout the real estate industry, not only just residential, but logistics, commercial, retail. And the next section will hopefully explore some of the apps, some of the transformations occurring that will enable more Airbnb style leasing, but with other real estate asset sectors.
Hi, it's Andy Saul from the Oxford Future Real Estate Initiative, and today we're going to be discussing the shared economy. The shared economy, with regards to real estate, describes technology-based platforms which facilitate the use of real estate assets. The assets can be land or buildings, including offices, shops, storage, housing, and other property types. The platforms may simply provide information for prospective users and sellers of space, or they may more directly facilitate or affect rent or fee-based transactions. This sector supports the real estate occupier markets. The subsectors of the shared economy we discuss in the report are the office sector, typified by co-working provider WeWork, residential real estate, which is typified by platform Airbnb, other sectors such as disused restaurants, which you can lease out through Spacious, disused retail you can lease out on short-term basis through Appear Here, the concept of dark kitchens, which are shared kitchens that offer only online food delivery, as well as Startup Clutter, which allows you to run your garage, your disused garage, as a logistics and storage facility. The Shared Economy 3.0 discusses the idea that the data centers of the world will be the disused capacity of the hard drives on everyone's personal computers. The shared economy is based on the idea of collaborative consumption, that the cost of purchasing a good or service is not borne by one individual, but instead is divided across a larger group. This is the idea that our possessions can be leased out to others when we're not using them, thus generating us additional sources of income and revenue. In this part of this section of the discussion, I'm going to particularly focus on the office sector. A current problem in the real estate industry is that traditional lease terms do not encourage the efficient use of space. The term we use for potential revenue that could be generated from an unused resource is its spare capacity. Spare capacity is closely linked with the economic theory of opportunity cost, which describes the foregone revenue from an alternative allocation of a resource. For example, the opportunity cost of me using a desk is its lost productivity where it cannot be used by another worker to fulfill more urgent tasks. In the case of spare capacity, that desk is not being utilised at all, and so its opportunity cost of reallocation is much higher. As we've already stated, the average desk utilisation rate of a London office is less than 45%, while in 2019, approximately 13% of all US office space remained unleased. So in an average London office containing 500 workstations, if we had 100% desk utilisation, we could save £5 million a year on rent alone. There is a clear wealth of spare capacity of underutilised desks in the office market, at an average opportunity cost to London occupiers of £5 million. However, under traditional long leases, the occupier takes a set amount of floor space for a predetermined number of years. I believe this average office lease length is currently around 7 years in the UK. This means that corporate occupiers have to plan for the rare occasion that 100% of their staff show up in any single day. What's more, these traditional long leases come with fully repairing and insuring clauses which do not promote necessary upgrades. The commercial office sector has a need to reduce energy demand by 60% in order to hit the 2050 net zero carbon deadline. It is estimated that between 70 to 80% of existing buildings will still be in use by 2050, and with 18% of commercial real estate in England and Wales not even meeting the current minimum energy efficiency standards. In order to satisfy this goal, we'll require huge energy efficient upgrades to the existing building stock. However, current lease structures which govern the operation of assets are creating a scenario where neither landlord nor tenant are incentivised to do so. Let me explain a bit further. Most buildings are currently operated under fully repairing and insuring an FRI lease structure, making the tenant financially liable for energy consumption and thus are most likely to invest in energy efficient upgrades. We can see this at the top of the orange arrow. However, the tenant is under no obligation to do so, as energy efficiency policy, such as the government's minimum energy efficiency standard and accreditations such as BREEAM ratings, only target the landlords of the building. But under this same FRI lease structure, the landlord is not financially liable for the operational energy consumption, and so is unlikely to invest in energy efficient upgrades beyond those required to obtain a market accreditation, which may help to market the property and reduce vacancy, but as we've seen in the second section, often does not correlate with operational energy efficiency and is purely greenwashing. We can see this at the bottom of the blue line. So the scenario I've just explained is the root cause of the performance gap detailed earlier, where on average buildings perform 3.8 times worse than intended at design. This represents an energy efficiency related split incentive, when the tenant is responsible for bill payments but not the upkeep of energy systems. We must also remember that energy only represents a largely insignificant 1% of the average occupier's cost, which can lead to temporarily related split incentives. This is when the payback time of energy efficient upgrades fall outside of the tenant's lease term. Other circumstances in which the flow of investments and benefits are not properly rationed among the parties to a transaction, impairing investment decisions, include usage-related split incentives, when the tenant is not responsible for bill payment and thus is more likely to overuse energy, and multi-tenant, multi-owner split incentives, where the decision structures act as a barrier to collective agreement on energy efficient system upgrades. So, where does the shared economy come into this picture? Well, we've already identified how smart building technologies, which provide an accurate real-time measurement of desk and room occupancy, can help to maximise utilisation and reduce energy demand. We have also detailed how real estate financial technologies reduce associated costs of a transaction. Combining the two has led to the ability to both measure and lease out ever smaller subdivided areas of previously underutilised real estate on increasingly shorter leases. This offering has been dubbed Space as a Service and has been popularised by WeWork and the Office Group. Global occupiers have highlighted the advantages to them in signing more flexible lease agreements, allowing them to reduce their real estate costs and easily take more or less space as their companies grow and shrink. Also under this type of flexible lease structure, where individual rooms or desks are rented out on a short-term basis, the managing agent or landlord are financially responsible for the operational aspects of a building. This circumnavigates the problem of split incentives, as the same party is responsible for both the capital investment and the energy bills in the building, motivating them to make the required energy efficient upgrades. Flexible leases also motivate landlords and managing companies to enhance user satisfaction. The nature of the short lease is that if a space is not satisfactory, a customer can simply leave with a month's notice and has a host of substitutes at their disposal. Accordingly, landlords are incentivised to provide workplaces which better meet the needs of the end user. The conditions that make a shared economy proposal attractive to tech investors and entrepreneurs are a diverse and widely distributed source of demand, a diverse and widely distributed and heterogeneous source of supply, and no dominant effective mechanism for bringing demand and supply together, with potential financial gains to the demand side, the supply side, and an intermediary. With average London office opportunity cost sitting at £5 million, as previously detailed, there is a huge opportunity for a landlord-agnostic desk booking platform to enter the market and become this mechanism to efficiently connect the supply and demand, the Airbnb for offices. This is the basic premise of all shared economy offerings: Airbnb, Zipcar, even for sharing of living pets through apps like Borrow My Doggy. The closest startups operating in the commercial office market currently represent co-working agnostic brokerages such as Hubble, Liquid Space and Pivot Desk. Nobody has yet managed to capture the traditional landlords and exploit their spare office capacity for financial gain of everyone. The emergence of this platform would represent an alternative route to that of market-leading tenant experience platforms for the emergence of a comparable user satisfaction rating across buildings, thus motivating landlords to invest in the social sustainability of their assets to achieve better scores. Again, a bit like a TripAdvisor for offices. It's predicted that the number of global co-working spaces will double to 36,000 by 2025, and by 2030, 30% of all US office space will be operated under a flexible lease model. If this trend continues, such a technological solution able to increase the environmental and social sustainability of assets may not be needed. However, if the industry does eventually succumb to an Expedia or TripAdvisor or Airbnb for office space, the implications would be game-changing. Net Promoter Scores, also known as customer satisfaction ratings, will be used to compare various commercial spaces and ultimately drive tenant demand. Building owners and occupiers will, like hospitality operators, begin to think about their businesses in terms of business to business, business to customer, and business to platform. The collection and analysis of space utilisation data will allow for the dynamic pricing of spaces, increasing in price at peak times and decreasing in price when demand is low, thus enabling a full occupancy at all times and maximising the value of the asset. Finally, building values will no longer be calculated universally based on the strength of a tenant's covenant and the terms of the lease, but increasingly on the basis of EBITDA or revenue per available desk measures. A little more far-fetched, but the power of branding under such a scenario could lead to the emergence of anchor desks, offices given free of charge to individuals or startups whose profiles are sufficient to demand an increased rent for all other desks in the immediate vicinity. The economies of scale derived from a clustering of specific job functions could also see the rise of specialised flexible working spaces, such as the recently launched PropTech Place in New York or the PropTech Central in London. So to recap, the shared economy once again is born out of the ability to measure and list available space. At its most obvious, these are disused rooms in houses listed on Airbnb. But as smart building technology develops that can accurately measure commercial desk usage, a platform could soon emerge to allow occupiers to profit from the spare capacity of traditional commercial assets. This would transform how we use offices, more in line with the hospitality sector, where the customer is always right. Dynamic prices could adjust daily to ensure full capacity. The pricing decision would therefore be driven by demand, which ultimately relies on your average customer ratings. New valuation models would focus more on revenue per available desk and less on covenant and lease terms. All that's left to say in this section is that we'll shortly be beginning a project to explore some of these hypotheses, due for release in Q3 2020. We've also written an issues paper covering all of these topics in far greater detail, due for imminent release, so keep an eye out on our social media pages and website for more information. Having explored our three-sector model of innovation, the final section of this talk will look at whether it is possible to predict if any technology is more likely to be adopted than any other, and therefore which innovations will be likely first to fruition.